Hello everyone, welcome to Miss Doc Tea. This is Dr. Farheen, General Medicine Resident, and today let's discuss aortic stenosis. So, starting with a simplified four-chambered view of the heart, the deoxygenated blood from the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava opens into the right atrium, and then through the tricuspid valve it reaches the right ventricle, and then through the pulmonary valve it flows into the pulmonary artery, and then it is oxygenated at the alveoli, and the oxygenated blood is then returned into the left atrium, and then through the mitral valve it reaches the left ventricle, and through the aortic valve this oxygenated blood is pumped to the rest of the body. Now, what happens when there is an aortic valve stenosis? So, let's suppose this is a normal aortic valve that is closed, and an aortic valve has three leaflets, and this is a normal aortic valve when opened, and the normal area of the aortic valve is 3 to 4 centimeters square. Now, when there is stenosis, the aortic valve cannot open properly, and so the area of the aortic valve is decreased. And so the left ventricle cannot empty properly into the aorta, leading to left ventricular outflow obstruction. And to overcome this outflow obstruction in the initial stages, the left ventricle will increase its contraction, thereby leading to left ventricular hypertrophy. And then the left ventricular hypertrophy leads to increased intraventricular pressure to maintain the cardiac output. So, left ventricular hypertrophy is an adaptive mechanism that occurs in aortic stenosis to maintain the cardiac output. As the left ventricular hypertrophy occurs, the muscle mass is increased in the left ventricle, and so with time the left ventricle becomes tight and it cannot relax properly, leading to diastolic dysfunction. Here a point to remember is that blood flows into the coronaries during diastole. And as there is a diastolic dysfunction, there is no proper blood flow into the coronary arteries, causing a demand supply mismatch in the heart, leading to ischemia and angina. This can then progress to systolic dysfunction, where the left ventricle cannot contract properly, leading to a decreased cardiac output that precipitates shortness of breath and syncope on exertion. So, exertional syncope, exertional dyspnea, and angina forms the classic triad of aortic stenosis. Finally, due to stenosis, the cardiac output decreases even at rest, leading to backflow of blood into the pulmonary circulation and into the right heart, producing symptoms of pulmonary congestion like orthopnea, paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea, cough, hemoptysis, and also symptoms of right heart failure like ascites, edema, and raised JVP. So, the symptoms of aortic stenosis include the classic triad of aortic stenosis, that is angina, exertional dyspnea, and exertional syncope, and then symptoms of pulmonary congestion and right heart failure. Next, the signs of aortic stenosis. Starting with the apex. Apex in aortic stenosis is known as a heaving type or a sustained apex, which means the lift at the apex remains for more than 2/3 of the systole. Now, as the left ventricle is emptied very slowly into the aorta because of stenosis, the pulse can be felt in the carotid, which is a slow rising with a late peak. So, as compared to the normal pulse waveform, the pulse of aortic stenosis shows a slow rise, which is known as parvus, and a delayed peak, which is known as tardus. So, the pulse in aortic stenosis is known as parvus et tardus. Now coming to the auscultation of aortic stenosis, S1 is due to the closure of mitral valve and it is usually normal. As the left ventricle contracts, blood flows from the left ventricle through a narrowed aortic valve with turbulence, producing an abnormal sound during systole, which is known as the ejection systolic murmur. This murmur starts little after S1 and it peaks at the middle of systole, and then it comes back to normal just before S2. So this is known as a crescendo decrescendo murmur because it peaks in the mid of the systole. Now after the blood reaches the aorta, the aortic valve closes, producing the sound S2. This S2 in aortic stenosis is described as no split S2 or paradoxical split of S2. Now let's understand this S2 in aortic stenosis. So suppose this is a picture of a heart and the right ventricle opens into the pulmonary artery through the pulmonary valve and the left ventricle opens into the aorta through the aortic valve. This aortic valve and the pulmonary valve are the semilunar valves. Now closure of the semilunar valves produces the sound S2. Normally the aortic valve closes a little bit earlier than the pulmonary valve, producing a normal split which is heard during inspiration. In aortic stenosis, as there is a delayed emptying of left ventricle into the aorta, this aortic valve closes little late and it may occur simultaneously with the closure of pulmonary valve. That is, A2 can occur simultaneously with P2, producing no split of S2. Or the aortic valve may close even more slowly, where the P2 occurs earlier than A2, producing a paradoxical split of S2. So first there is a closure of mitral valve which causes the sound S1, then contraction of left ventricle pushing the blood through a narrowed aortic valve leads to an ejection systolic murmur, and then closure of the aortic valve causes S2, which can have no split or it can have a paradoxical split. Emptying of left atrium into the left ventricle followed by closure of mitral valve produces S1, then emptying of left ventricle into the aorta through a stenosed aortic valve produces the ejection systolic murmur, and then delayed closure of aortic valve produces S2 either with no split or with a paradoxical split. So again the same process continues. Now coming to the causes of aortic stenosis. It can occur because of some congenital reasons like a bicuspid aortic valve. So this is a normal aortic valve having 3 cusps, and this is a bicuspid aortic valve having only 2 cusps that can cause aortic stenosis. In some acquired conditions like calcification of aortic valve, rheumatoid heart disease, which can cause fusion of the commissures of valve leaflets. Now, what does this commissure means? Commissures are the areas where the leaflets of valve come together to insert onto the annulus. So, fusion of these valvular commissures occur in rheumatic heart disease, leading to aortic stenosis. And also, it can occur in mediastinal radiation, which can cause scarring, fibrosis, or calcification of the aortic valve, leading to aortic stenosis. And as already discussed, the symptoms of aortic stenosis include the classic triad of exertional dyspnea, angina, syncope, and also the features of pulmonary congestion and right heart failure. And signs of aortic stenosis include a pulse which is a slow rising and a late peaking pulse known as a parvus et tardus, an apex which is heaving or a sustained type, and on auscultation there is a normal S1 with an ejection systolic murmur, and then there is an S2. Now, the ECG in aortic stenosis may show features of left ventricular hypertrophy or left ventricular strain. So, left ventricular strain is seen as ST depressions and T wave inversions in the left sided leads, and left ventricular hypertrophy in ECG is seen if the S wave in V1 plus the R wave in V6 or the S wave in V2 plus the R wave in V5 exceed 35 mm. So looking at an ECG here, each box corresponds to 5 millimeters, and in V1 the S wave is 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 small boxes in length which is equal to 20 mm, and in V6 the R wave is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 small boxes which is 25 mm, and the sum of S wave in V1 and R wave in V6 is 20 plus 25, that is 45 mm. So it is more than 35 mm, which indicates there is LVH. Similarly, looking at the S wave in V2, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that is 35 mm, and R wave in V5, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that is 30 mm. And so the sum of S wave in V2 and R wave in V5 is 35 plus 30, which is 65 mm. So it is more than 35 mm, that indicates LVH. Next, left ventricular strain, as I already said, is indicated by ST depressions and T wave inversions in the left sided leads, that is lead 1, AVL, V5 and V6. Now looking at the ECG, there are ST depressions and T wave inversions in lead 1, also in lead AVL, lead V5 and in lead V6. So this indicates an LV strain. So left ventricular hypertrophy and left ventricular strain patterns can be seen in the ECG of a patient with aortic stenosis. Echo is the diagnostic test for any valvular disease, and it can measure the area of an aortic valve where normal area is 3 to 4 centimeters square and 1.5 to 2 centimeters square is mild aortic stenosis, 1 to 1.5 centimeters square is a moderate aortic stenosis, and less than 1 centimeter square is a severe aortic stenosis. It can also detect a bicuspid aortic valve or any other associated valvular abnormalities which can be seen, especially if the cause is a rheumatic heart disease. Now, management of aortic stenosis. So, it's very obvious that a stenosed valve cannot be recovered by medications, and so surgery is the management in aortic stenosis. Now, this surgical management includes either a valve replacement or just a valve repair. Aortic valve repair is done by PABV, that is percutaneous aortic balloon valvoplasty, but this is not a definite treatment and it only produces temporary relief of symptoms. Now, aortic valve replacement can be done by two methods, that is a transcatheter aortic valve replacement or an open surgical aortic valve replacement. So, how to select the patients for either of these procedures is that first, the risk of mortality and morbidity following the surgery is assessed by using Society of Thoracic Surgeons score, STS score. Now, depending upon this score, if the risk of mortality and morbidity is high, then a transcatheter aortic valve replacement is done. And in case the morbidity and mortality following the surgery is low or it is absent, then a surgical aortic valve replacement is done. But it's important to remember that transcatheter aortic valve replacement is now considered as the first choice of surgical management in patients with aortic stenosis unless it is contraindicated. And this is the complete picture of aortic stenosis, starting from the etiopathogenesis, the symptoms, signs, the diagnosis and management of aortic stenosis. And I really hope this video helped you a lot. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Hope you liked it. Let's meet again with another new topic. Till then, just take care, be happy and stay safe.